So recently there was another shooting, a mass shooting that happened, which is very unfortunate. It happens all the time in America because of our shitty gun laws. Anyway, I would like to say, well, there isn't positives necessarily you can take out of a tragedy.
Sure.
I'm so sick of seeing this political comic constantly after every school shooting, and at the very least, we probably won't be seeing that one anymore.
Well, at least not for this one. Here we go.
It's the Bible reloaded, logic explosion, like Jesus and Moses, but it's Hugo and Jake. The Bible is jaded, and most of it taken, so get educated with Hugo and Jake. Pull up a new and stop what you're doing, it's Bible reloaded time. They call it debated, the fears will hate it, like talking to taken, but it's Hugo and Jake. So I'm with the show then, it's not candy coated, it's the Bible reloaded, with Hugo and Jake, with Hugo and Jake.
Hello everyone, I'm Hugo,
And I'm Jake, and I ain't shoot nobody.
and this is the Bible Reloaded. Welcome back, everyone.
Oh, you were keeping that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So our string of single takes remains there. We're fine.
I can redo it if you want.
No, we're
Okay.
good.
Today we're gonna finish Jeremiah. Finally.
The blah 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 blah. We're gonna talk like this the whole time.
And
We're underwater. Underwater beach episode. Hashtag beach buds.
that's contradictory. You can't have an underwater beach episode. Beaches, by definition, are excluded from the water.
You're so fucking
They're
right about
parallel.
that. No, you got me.
Anyway, so the minute the sea touches it, it's sea. That's not the point. Firstly, Jeremiah chapter 22. It's called Judgment Against Wicked Kings. This is God just essentially reiterating through Jeremiah once again the wickedness, but it's directed specifically at the rulers of Jerusalem. And saying to them, you have been unfaithful, directly you are going to be held responsible for the fall of Jerusalem. Stuff like that. Then, chapter 23, the righteous branch. We're going to read a little bit out of that. Woe to the shepherds who are destroying and scattering the sheep of my pasture, declares the Lord. Therefore, this is what the Lord, God of Israel, says to the shepherds who tend my people. Because you have scattered my flock and driven them away, and have not bestowed care on them, I will bestow punishment on you for the evil you have done, declares the Lord. I myself will gather the remnants of my flock out of all the countries where I have driven them, and will bring them back to their pasture, where they will be fruitful and increase in number. I will place shepherds over them who will tend them, and they will no longer be afraid or terrified, nor will any be missing, declares the Lord. Except for the dead ones, presumably, because he says a lot of them are going to die. Anyway.
So he's basically turning Jews into breeding bulls and calves?
This section is where God starts to U-turn, because the entire first half of Jeremiah is him directly saying why and how he's going to destroy Jerusalem, and just piling on. Again, we've made the comparison to abusive relationships before, and it's even more apt here because after all of that tearing down, this is where we begin the, now we're going to rebuild you with the foundation of you are obedient to me.
When do we get to threats of suicide? I'll kill myself if you leave.
No, God's a dude. He doesn't do that.
Oh, accurate. I'm on board with that.
Anyway, so after that, the rest of 23 is God talking about lying prophets. We're going to talk about this in a little bit, but essentially, if you were in Jerusalem at the time, you were in one of two camps, probably.
Yeah.
Those who wanted to support Babylon as allies,
Woo!
and those who wanted to support Egypt as allies. Jeremiah happens to be on the Babylonian side of who he wants to, so
Damn right.
the lying prophets are the ones who are like, no, it'll be fine, we can take on Babylon.
Pro-Babylonians, their fan group name is the Babylonians.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
Not bad.
So God just says, hey, lying prophets, stop lying, you're bad. Then 24, 2 baskets of figs. Let's read, shall we?
How many baskets?
2
Of what?
figs.
Sure.
After Jehoiachin, son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, and the officials, the skilled workers and the artisans of Judah were carried into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. This was actually, I believe, the first time he came and sacked the city. It wasn't when it was actually destroyed, but he essentially captured a bunch of the skilled workers.
There's a period where he'll do it. I think it's 3 years, and then he leaves, and then another 7 years is when they do it again.
Something like that.
And so these kings are kind of taking place there. If this would make sense contemporarily,
yeah,
but it's kind of, you got to suss through it at this point.
Yeah, so they're just talking about the skilled laborers that Babylon came in, and when they left, they're like, we're taking your skilled workers. Because think about it, in the ancient world, if you're an artisan, if you're someone who knows how to build large structures, you're of great value to whatever city or kingdom has you. So,
and this kind of marks an interesting part in the history of the Jews in that area, because they're going to start to team up with Egypt in response to this sort of stuff.
Yep.
And if you know, it turns out Egypt and the Jews not always been friends. I think there was something about fire tornadoes and killing children. But it's all very vague to me.
Yeah. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Anyway, 2 baskets of figs. The Lord showed me 2 baskets of figs placed in front of the temple of the Lord.
Again, this is a prophecy from Jeremiah.
Yeah.
It's important to think about that.
1 basket had very good figs, like those that ripen early. The other basket had very bad figs, so they could not be eaten. Then the Lord asked me, "What do you see, Jeremiah?" "Figs," I answered.
Figs.
It's a good answer.
I've never had a fresh fig. I've only had Newtons or other fig desserts.
Are there real figs and fig Newtons? I guess I've always assumed it's like
it's fig filling, but it's definitely processed, but like
it's fig in the same way like meat at Taco Bell is meat.
Yeah.
Like 40% sure.
I have had like candied figs in a really high-end dessert.
Yeah.
And those were super good, but I've never had like a fresh, like off the tree fig. I've never even seen one. How many of you people have just had like figs? Is that a common fruit?
I don't even know where it grows. The good ones are very good, but the bad ones are so bad they cannot be eaten. Then the word of the Lord came to me. This is what the Lord God of Israel says. Like these good figs, I regard as good the exiles from Judah, who I sent away from this place to the land of the Babylonians. My eyes will watch over them for their good, and I will bring them back to this land. I will build them up and not tear them down. I will plant them and not uproot them. I will give them a heart to know me, that I am the Lord. They will be my people, and I will be their God, for they will return to me with all their heart. But, like the bad figs, which are so bad they cannot be eaten, says the Lord, so I will deal with Zedekiah, king of Judah, his officials, and the survivors from Jerusalem, whether they remain in this land or live in Egypt. I will make them abhorrent and offense to all of the kingdoms of the earth, a reproach and a byword, a curse and an object of ridicule. Wherever I banish them, I will send the sword, famine, and plague against them until they are destroyed from the land I gave them and their ancestors. This story serves 2 purposes. Firstly, it again addresses Zedekiah was the king who was essentially put in place by the Babylonians to be a friendly ruler. He was starting to go to Egypt and say, "Hey, Egypt, you want to maybe Babylon's getting pretty big. Maybe we want to not let them get so big." Babylon didn't like this. Thus, the ensuing conflict is about that. And you get echoes of that with Jeremiah talking about even the people who afterwards flee back to Egypt. I'm gonna get ya, stuff like that. And the story also, while condemning those who want to work with Egypt, it also says the people who are captured by Babylon, you're gonna be fine. So it's both, if you're a person who is politically on the side that is not Jeremiah's, it's supposed to warn you, and if you're captured, if you happen to hear word of this story, you're supposed to be like, we're gonna be fine! We'll be okay! They probably weren't okay, but you get it.
Nice strategy, though. A little propaganda for you.
Yeah. Next, chapter 25, 70 years of captivity. The word came to Jeremiah concerning all the people of Judah in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah, which was the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. So Jeremiah the prophet said to all the people of Judah and to all those living in Jerusalem, for 23 years, from the 13th year of Josiah, son of Ammon, king of Judah, until this very day, the word of the Lord has come to me, and I have spoken to you again and again, but you have not listened. He goes on to repeat a lot of the stuff he had said previously, and then down in verse 11 it says, This whole country will become a desolate wasteland, and these nations will serve the king of Babylon for 70 years. But when those 70 years are fulfilled, I will punish the king of Babylon and his nation, the land of the Babylonians, for their guilt, declares the Lord, and will make it desolate forever. I will bring on the land all the things I have spoken against it, all that are written in this book and prophesied by Jeremiah against all nations. They themselves will be enslaved by many nations and great kings. I will repay them according to their deeds and their work in their hands.
And that's exactly what happened. The Bible prophesies.
No, actually, we know the exact dates.
Oh.
Okay, so in 586 BCE, apparently, is when the fall of Jerusalem happened. That's when the king of Babylon actually did go in and like, fuck you, Jerusalem, the event being described. And then Babylon fell in 538 BCE, so it was only actually occupied for 48 years, not 70 before
It's a good
they
run,
got
though.
autonomy again. Yeah. It's always good to guess. And in fairness on Jeremiah's
Guess
part,
high.
guess high, especially when life expectancy is as low as it was
Oh,
then.
yeah.
Oh, everyone was dead by the time that happened,
Oh,
so
yeah.
it was like, whatever. But yeah, that's only 48 years, not 70. Prophecy
Not fulfilled.
not fulfilled.
That's like shit. That's not even gonna get you your moon in Super Mario Odyssey.
Nope.
You do those step trials. You got to get a certain number.
Close.
No, it's close.
No cigar. Then Cup of God's Wrath. Literally just, again, God being like, I'm fucking mad. I am gonna hurt everyone. Normal, healthy attitude to have. Chapter 26, Jeremiah threatened with death. That's after he has been going around prophesizing all of these things. The king, of course, is upset with him because the king is on the side of, I would rather be more on Egypt's side. I'm a little
Right.
too buddy-buddy with Babylon.
He's reverse Paul revering right now.
Yeah. So he gets threatened with death.
Not
And
surprised.
then, Judah to serve Nebuchadnezzar in chapter 27. Early in the reign of Zedekiah, son of Josiah, king of Judah, this word came to Jeremiah from the Lord. This is what the Lord said to me. Make a yoke out of straps and a crossbar and put it on your neck. Then said word to the king of Edom, Moab, Ammon, Tyre, and Sidon through the envoys who have come to Jerusalem to Zedekiah, king of Judah. Give them a message for their masters and say, this is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says. Tell this to your masters. With my great power and outstretched arm, I made the earth and its people and the animals that are in it, and I give it to anyone I please. Now I will give all your countries into the hands of my servant Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. I will make even the wild animals subject to him.
It's making an excuse like, oh, this guy's building an empire, ignoring China and the Aztecs,
Yeah.
the everyone else that I can't see, and going, yeah, he's gonna be in charge of he's God's servant. Yeah, he's God's servant. Yeah, it was intentional. This is what happens, guys, jerks.
Otherwise, wow, this whole God thing might not be true because a guy who's not on our side
yeah.
is taking over basically
Of course,
everything.
He must be on God's side because
Yeah.
although he is a different hue, not quite olive,
Yeah.
more like a date.
So that happens, and literally, supposedly, he made a yoke. Remember, a yoke is essentially what you put over a beast of burden to kind of keep them together. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I know
Restrained. There's a yoke. There's a picture of a yoke. He made it and literally sent it to different people to be like, visual metaphors are impactful!
Did he also send a letter of explanation or just yokes? And they're like, I guess we got another one.
I hope it came with a note. Remember the time that he sent, the guy sent a bunch of dead hooker parts?
He did.
Did he send a note with that?
No.
Oh, well, that explains a lot. Anyway, chapter 28. False prophet Hananiah. Basically, Hananiah would be someone who is politically on the side of the king, saying, hey, we're gonna fuck with Babylon. We need Egypt's help. He essentially says, if we go against Babylon, God will be on our side, the false prophet says. And then it ends with verse 17. In the 7th month of that same year, Hananiah, the prophet, died.
Oh.
So literally, the whole story is just Jeremiah being like, nuh-uh, and then at the end, to prove Jeremiah was right,
It
they
kind of
just killed the other guy.
sounds like this other guy was like, the Harvey Milk of like Jerusalem, and then he got on his little soapbox and then keeled over eventually, and so Jeremiah won by default.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the desert, you're either right or you're dead. So, anyway, Chapter 29, the letter to exiles. Basically, this is just a long letter which supposedly Jeremiah actually was supposed to have sent to the exiles in Babylon, essentially saying, hey, we know you're not home right now. You probably want to be in your homeland, but don't worry, God will deliver you eventually. Chapter 30, Restoration of Israel. This is a long section. This goes chapters and chapters and chapters, and I'm not going to read it because it essentially says the opposite of everything that was at the beginning of Jeremiah when he says, I am going to dismantle you brick by brick. I will destroy you. You are
rebuild you
brick
by
are
brick now?
disobedient. It's all the opposite. I'm going to build you up. This new breed of Jews will be faithful and strong, and I will make them multiply, you know.
Oh man, that's straight up Stockholming.
Yes. Again,
That's pretty good.
the
That's a
breaking
good
someone
strategy.
down so you can build them back up
Yeah,
in the
no.
way you want.
That works.
Yeah.
That's a good way to get a sex slave, honestly.
Yep. And then Jeremiah in prison. He gets sent to prison.
Yeah.
Jeremiah thrown in a cistern. He gets thrown in a cistern.
Does he die there?
No, he does not.
He doesn't die in the cistern.
No.
Oh boy, what an exciting turn of events.
And then in chapter 38, verse 14, Zedekiah questions Jeremiah again. So Jeremiah has been in prison for a while because of his positions, because he's been speaking out against the king's political positions on Egypt and Babylon. And now, in desperation, the king is going to go to Jeremiah and be like, I might have fucked up. So, then King Zedekiah sent for Jeremiah the prophet and had him brought to the third entrance to the temple of the Lord. I'm going to ask you something, the king said to Jeremiah. Do not hide anything from me.
That is intense.
Yeah.
I got hibby-libbies.
Jeremiah said to Zedekiah, if I give you an answer, will you not kill me? Even if I did give you counsel, you would not listen to me.
God damn, this is like prime time network cop drama.
Yeah, that's pretty good. But King Zedekiah swore this oath secretly to Jeremiah. As surely as the Lord lives, I will neither kill you nor hand you over to those who want to kill you. Then Jeremiah said to Zedekiah, this is what the Lord God Almighty, the God of Israel, says. If you surrender to the officers of the king of Babylon, your life will be spared, and the city will not be burned down. You and your family will live. But if you will not surrender to the officers of the king of Babylon, this city will be given into the hands of the Babylonians, and they will burn it down. You yourself will not escape from them. King Zedekiah said to Jeremiah, I am afraid of the Jews who have gone over to the Babylonians, for the Babylonians may hand me over to them, and they will mistreat me. They misled you and overcame you. Those trusted friends of yours, your feet are sunk in mud. Your friends have deserted you.
No!
Yeah.
It's intense.
All your wives and children will be brought out to the Babylonians. You yourself will not escape from their hands, but will be captured by the king of Babylon, and your city will be burned down. Then Zedekiah said to Jeremiah, do not let anyone know about this conversation, or you will die. If the officials hear that I talk to you, and they come to you and say, tell us what you said to the king and what the king said to you, do not hide it from us, or we will kill you. Then you tell them, I was pleading with the king not to send me back to Jonathan's house to die there.
So he's setting up his alibis,
Yeah.
right? He's setting up, gotta get your stories straight, guys.
All the officials did come to Jeremiah and question him, and he told them everything the king had ordered him to say, so they said no more to him, for no one had heard the conversation with the king, and Jeremiah remained in the courtyard of the guard until the day Jerusalem was captured. So, from there, the king was warned, surrender to Babylon. Again, you can see Jeremiah being very on the Babylonian side, just saying, like, just let us be part of the Babylonian Empire for a while, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And
It also seems maybe tactically sound.
yeah, I mean...
Babylon at that time was sweeping across the fucking world.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, for a reference people might get a little bit better, like, if I'm a small village and I hear the Romans are just over the fucking ridge, I'm probably having my flag ready, like, okay,
Yeah,
I'm ready to be
right.
Roman, bring on the indoor plumbing, great.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, I'm fine with indoor plumbing. You get boy sex slaves, but it's fine culturally speaking. They want to do that, you know what I mean?
oh god.
They wanted to. I doubt it. And they had really thick, good wine. You can watch people slaughter each other in the square, and then eventually all your houses get burned down by Nero, but that's fine. That's later.
So, it's not the worst idea at the time if there is a bigger empire than you and they're treating
Yeah.
people that are under their, you know...
And typically, the process wasn't just go through and murder everyone.
No.
It was typically kind of absorption. They'd absorb the culture and the people and the cities, because you can't rule the world if there's no people to rule over.
Yeah.
So.
39. The Fall of Jerusalem. This is how Jerusalem was taken. In the 9th year of Zedekiah, king of Judah, in the 10th month, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, marched against Jerusalem with his whole army and laid siege to it. And on the 9th day of the 4th month of Zedekiah's 11th year, the city wall was broken through. Then all the officials of the king of Babylon came and took seats in the middle gate. Nergal-Shazzar, Samgar, Nebo-Sarskim. I'm not making these names up, I swear.
You sound like Doctor Who villains.
I know. A chief officer, Nergal-Shazzar, a high official, and all the other officials of the king of Babylon. When Zedekiah, king of Judah, and all the other soldiers saw them, they fled. So remember, he's supposed to surrender. He's not surrendering, he's running away. Which I would argue is kind of a surrender, but whatever. They left the city by night by way of the king's garden, through the gate between the two walls, and headed towards the Arabah.
That's the Jordan Valley.
But the Babylonian army pursued them and overtook Zedekiah in the plains of Jericho. They captured him and took him to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, at Riblah in the hands of Hamath, where he pronounced sentence on him. There at Riblah, the king of Babylon slaughtered the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes, and also killed the nobles of Judah. Then he put out Zedekiah's eyes and bound him with bronze shackles to take him to Babylon.
Not worth.
The Babylonians set fire to the royal palace and the houses of the people and broke down the walls of Jerusalem. Nebuzaradan, commander of the imperial guard, carried into exile to Babylon the people who remained in the city, along with those who had gone over to him and the rest of the people. But Nebuzaradan, the commander of the guard, left behind in the land of Judah some of the poor people who owned nothing, and at that time he gave them the vineyards and fields. So again, Babylon in this case, well again, I do think going around and conquering sovereign nations, not okay. At the time, they did as much as they could to destroy the city, and they said to the people there, okay, you're Babylonians now, let's go, and marched them back to fucking Babylon. And then the poor people there who didn't own anything previously, they're like, you can have the farms and stuff if you want, and start over and live here. I mean, it's not great, but the Jews have done much worse in this book.
Yeah.
Like a lot worse, so, you know. Jeremiah freed, pretty self-explanatory. That same commander finds Jeremiah in the courtyard.
Yep.
He says, I was told by the king of Babylon to free you, and you can come with us. We'll take care of you if you want. Because again, Jeremiah pretty publicly has been saying for a long time now, we should be on the side of Babylon.
This has a sort of Joseph feel to it as well.
Yeah, a little bit. And then it just continues, Jeremiah freed, blah, 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 flight to Egypt. Some of the people go to Egypt. You can imagine what happens. Disaster because of idolatry, which is chapter 44. Skip over to verse 11. Therefore, this is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says. I am determined to bring disaster on you and destroy all of Judah. I will take away the remnant of Judah who are determined to go to Egypt to settle there. They will all perish in Egypt. They will fall by the sword or die from famine. From the least to the greatest, they will die by the sword or famine. I didn't repeat myself. It just said it twice.
Oh. See?
Nope. They will become a curse and an object of horror, a curse and an object of reproach. I will punish those who live in Egypt with the sword, famine and plague, as I punish Jerusalem. None of the remaining of Judah who have gone to live in Egypt will escape or survive to return to the land of Judah, to which they long to return to and live. None will return except a few fugitives. So, once again, painting this entire thing as a big political point against the people who are on the side of partnering up with Egypt. If you go to Egypt, God's gonna come and get you, so don't even try it. Babylon, bitch, go, is basically what he's saying.
Babylon never conquers Egypt.
Well, he didn't know that.
Spoilers!
He doesn't know that.
Definitely not at this time.
It's funny, because in the short term, Jeremiah seemed to be really right. Long term,
no.
it paints him as a really poor prophet. Okay. Message about Egypt.
Dude, at the time, though, think about it, they must have been freaking out.
Oh, at the time. But the thing is, again, remember there was a story about the I assume there were many different prophets.
Oh, yeah, of course. That's almost as crazy as recently there was an old Sports Illustrated article that prophesized the Houston Astros winning the World Series this year. When they sucked.
Right.
It's the same thing.
And if enough people are guessing
Yeah.
enough things,
All
one
you
person
need,
will...
All you need is 32 people to prophesize that one of each team gets there, and eventually one of you's right?
Yeah.
So.
Anyway, chapter 46, a message about Egypt. Literally just all about how he's going to destroy Egypt. Doesn't.
Fire.
Yep. Message about the Philistines. Whole chapter about how he's going to kill the Philistines.
Gotcha.
A message about Moab. You can probably...
There's a lot of messages.
You can see where this is going.
Okay, so he's gonna blow up everything.
And then finally a message about Babylon. This is interesting because you'd think God is going to say, oh, you know, Babylon helped me out.
Yeah.
They're doing what I'm telling them to do.
He literally called Nebuchadnezzar his, like, the person he put in charge on purpose.
Yeah, but instead, God says, after the 70 years, which of course didn't take the entire 70 years, bad prophecy, God says, oh, I'm gonna fucking destroy them. They're the worst, right?
But why?
Because they were just tools. God does not care for them at all. They were being used as tools of God's vengeance, and that's it. They are to be used and tossed away immediately. So that's unfortunate for Babylon. And then, finally, chapter 52, the fall of Jerusalem. This is the final chapter, and it just sort of restates in a more concise manner exactly when and how things happen, but just for sake of scale, I want you to hear the numbers. Remember when they left Egypt, how many there were, roughly, Jews? It was in the hundreds of thousands. I believe the army itself was in the millions, something like that. At least according to the Bible. Again, we're not saying that actually happened. But here are the numbers as of more recently, a time when we do have historical records, and this is what the Bible says. So Judah went into captivity, away from her land. This is the number of people Nebuchadnezzar carried into exile. In the 7th year, 3,023 Jews. In Nebuchadnezzar's 8th year, 832 people from Jerusalem. In his 23rd year, 745 Jews taken into exile by Nebuchadnezzar, the commander of the imperial guard. There were 4,600 people in all.
Our tiny farm town has more people in it.
Yeah. So
this is literally like a small village.
It's interesting how in our heads, because of how many people are on the earth today and how many people we see on a daily basis, we think of history retroactively like a, you know,
populated. We're looking at world population. We're not cresting 200 million. And some of the low estimates I have are 50 million.
Wow.
So not even a billion people.
And that's Earth total. This is obviously a very localized story in the Middle East.
That sounds so wrong, but it's gotta be right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, big epic stories, not as epic now because, you know, the amount of people in them wouldn't fill up your local fucking little fucking minor league baseball stadium.
Trying to think. For reference, though, this does make, like, our activity in Iraq pretty good, because only a few more people than were taken captive by Babylon died. As far as Americans, that's pretty... Given populations, that's pretty efficient.
Sorry if you're brown and innocent.
Yeah. Well, I said people. Not means to an end, and the end is oil.
Gotcha.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Hey, I'm not in charge. I didn't do any of that.
Yeah, well, all right. So, I guess that's it. We're done with Jeremiah. Up next.
Finally, Lamentations, which hopefully takes like a day, because I don't want to...
Lamentations!
The lamentations of their women! You guys remember that?
Yeah. So, until next time, you can always follow us on Twitter at Bible Reloaded. And Hugo Reloaded for me.
You can do Patreon, you can subscribe to the channel. Definitely send stuff to the P.O. Box.
Yep.
The P.O. Box is on the screen. We do live open stuff. I ate cat food last time. I'm serious. It was awful.
You're such a whore.
It was exactly as bad as you think it is.
So until next time, I'm Hugo.
It was wet cat food. I'm Jake. You gonna... No? Good? All right.
The room doesn't smell like it anymore, which
thank
which
goodness.
is great.
Yeah, I was suffering here for a little bit. This is my office as well.
It smelled like a fish had an abortion in here.